Hello. Today I'd like to visit uh, Bill Wilson, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, some pre AA. Bill Wilson got sober in the Oxford groups. I believe it merit worthy, I believe it helpful to understand the author and his experience. Um, Being that he got sober in a 4-step program, but wrote a 12-step program, well, there could be some confusion, and that confusion may show up in 12-step recovery, specifically step 1. I believe that issues have arisen. Well, my experience, I was told to do step 1 in the first year by most people, and I disagree that that's the best approach. And we're going to find out what Bill did. Did he agonize on step 1 or not? And we'll pick that over later. For now, we're going to learn some pre-AA. Now, I told you previously, I wrote some books back in '98. They're no longer in print, but I'm going to read from one of them. It's just easier. I did the work back then to give a basic understanding of Bill W. and his experience. Because now I'm leading you up to educating you on the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've made the point before. All 12-step programs rely on the original content for specifics in their programs, including the one that I wrote. So let's get started. Let's talk. How about we go back to 1842, 1843, Washingtonians. There's a group that could have found the key, as Alcoholics Anonymous did. They grew to a 500,000 in 3 years. But political issues, they didn't have regularly scheduled meetings. They didn't have the 12 traditions, we'll say, that Alcoholics Anonymous had to guide people. And so they fell apart. There was a time later when there was a revival, the Order of the Sons of Temperance, Washingtonian revival. That was another group. There was also the Martha Washingtonians. It was largely the females. Back then, the males were the problem and the females were the support. Some of it focused on love, purity, and fidelity as their principles. The earlier Washingtonians, it was about alcohol. I point that out because the Oxford groups really wasn't its primary. We'll get into that in a minute. Then the daughters of the temperance, the codependency piece, that was, again, back then in America, the structure of society was different than today, we'll say. Males and females in America today are far more equal, and the elements of society invite that, encourage that, and allow for that more than, back then. I mean, vulnerability was a big thing, and I mean, we were just organizing in life, but there was big events that happened here and there. We were moving along pretty well, and 1842 in certain parts of the country. So there was other efforts, but you get the idea. So in 1921, a guy named Frank B. Once supported Oxford University. Around 1926, after he was asked to cease operations at another university. Anyway, he created the Oxford groups. Now, this was a group that had 4 absolutes. That was their 4 steps: absolute honesty, absolute purity, absolute unselfishness, absolute love. So we're going to get into soon into the big book here, Bill's story. Big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, has a story. And he talks about his boyhood friend, Ebby T. It's not clear, the rest of it. That's why I'm telling you about it. That Ebby T was, he was a drunk like Bill, and he was locked up. The last Bill knew he was locked up for life, because that's what they did back then. When things got bad, they just locked you away for life with alcoholism. Couple of people had got him, this Ebby T, couple of people had stood up for him in court and got him out of there. A couple of people, I believe, were from the Oxford groups. And Ebby got sober. So Ebby T, he was sober when he come to see Bill. Incidentally, and I'll talk more about it at a time. If you want to know more about this, Joe and Charlie did some tapes, 11 hours, big book study. If you'd like a deep big book study, especially if you're someone that's been in AA a long time, picked us material over and don't quite understand the steps, they can help organize this information in your head. You can find that on, say, YouTube or tapes or whatever. Joe and Charlie, it was in the 70s. And I'll talk more about them at another time. This channel's simplifying the 12 steps. I'll go beyond what Joe and Charlie did. They focus on AA. I'll go well beyond that as far as the 12 steps in our life beyond AA. But they were very instrumental in my life, year 8 and 9, when I finally understood the 12 steps. And as time goes on, you'll learn more about that anyway. I like to pay homage to the people that came before me. It's important, for me anyway. So now we get these 4 absolutes. And in an early AA started in 1935. There was... They weren't quite sure what they were doing. There was a 6-step program that some of them were practicing. I don't know exactly where that came from. It suggested that Bill, when Bill wrote the 12-step book, the big book, I'm sorry, and created the 12 steps, that he considered the Washingtonians, he considered the Oxford groups, he considered the Bible, he considered other groups, whatever information was available. He considered also the information out of the doctors that he had encountered. And it was a collection of stuff that brought together his finished product. And I might add, I do believe that there was some intuition in there, maybe some spiritual experiences conveyed. Now, ABT, when he Bill was on a bender, and he was home, and Ebby called and then went over to visit, and Bill had been on a bender a while. I mean, there's a whole lot of his story. I'm not going to get into it. We all got a story, but this is important because we're leading up to step one. And the problem with step one in the big book is Bill W. didn't take step one in Alcoholics Anonymous. So it may not be real clear. It's not easy to find in there in any short order, okay? You gotta read a lot of material to make a finding. And what's important these days is we get an idea generally what alcoholism is and drug addiction. There's no shortage of treatment centers and how to manage it, and plenty of people sober, and but back then that wasn't the case. So I'm not minimizing the material at all. I'm just trying to get a clear and defined understanding, basic, simple understanding of the 12 steps. That's the point here, because I think that's what America needs. I think that's what the world needs if we want to improve the recovery. It appears that what the first 100 did isn't happening today. Now, Bill wrote about that, two-step in and stuff like that in 53, 54. Joe and Charlie confirmed that in the 70s. I confirmed it again in 98. But my assessments now, I haven't been to an AA meeting in a very long time. I haven't been to any 12-step meeting in a very long time. So my assessments are going to be nothing current. Now, has anything changed? Do I have any reason to think my assessments are changed? You know, there's a word or two that maybe has changed, but actual content, the reasons people may miss the certain components, that hasn't changed. The material's the same. I have what's changed, the color of the book, the pages may be in it, Alcoholics Anonymous. I got one of the original here, so the pages changed. We'll get into that. The material, what has changed is people's stories. That's all. The original content, how it works and all that, nothing's changed. Same with the step book. That information hasn't changed. It's people's interpretations. So I'm simply going back to, I'm going to teach you Bill Wilson AA, Bill WAA, okay? That's what this channel's about. I'm going to teach you Bill WAA so you can make a choice for yourself, so you can think for yourself and decide for yourself what do you think is the best avenue for you. Less some two-stepper does the thinking for you. Look at we'll just get on with this, you know. All right, then. So Ebby T and Bill Bill slides him a drink over across the table. Ebby slid it back. Something had changed. Something had changed. Look at, in the 4-step program, I don't know, probably he was doing step 4, absolute love maybe, but look at, in the 12-step program, he was doing a 12-step call. Now, typically, it's suggested 2 people go on a 12-step call, going to help, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We carry the message to others and practice these principles in all of our affairs. There's a lot there. We're going to get into that. Just, don't grab onto any little thing and get all wound up about it, because there's a lot that may be misunderstood, and there's a lot of lateral flexibility. 12 steps a very, very important step. So, Ebby T and Bill are talking, and now Bill's drunk. So everything that happened that day between Bill's 2 ears, Bill was drunk. Okay, or it probably coming down as they got talking. It probably doesn't sound to me like he was continuing to drink. I think EBT had some pointers for him, but I don't know. I wasn't there. It doesn't matter. He had been on a rail bender. Now the story appears to suggest that he got sober right after. He didn't. He went on to drink a little more, but something EBT said impacted Bill, because at some point Bill got sober again in the Oxford groups. Now the Oxford groups, they really were a moral program. They weren't. It wasn't a program for alcoholism. As a matter of fact, Bill became in his people, the drunk squad of the Oxford groups. They really weren't that welcome. Now, ABT was a drunk, but he apparently fit in better, whatever. I think Bill went and rounded up all the drunks, and so it challenged the group, and at some point it became evident to Bill that he needed to start his own program. I understand that. In '98, I got stuck. I was stuck. I'd been to a lot of meetings, and there's things that, for example, like in AA, you're taught keep the focus on yourself, and yeah, that works good. Mostly it's good. It allows people to communicate effectively and, kind of keep an eye on yourself and stuff. But, and I tried to apply that to, say, marriage that was in trouble. Well, it takes two to tangle. It just doesn't work the same. You drop the curtain and take a look at the other party, and it's a two-way street, for example. So just differences that might help someone out there that's at some point. But anyway, this concept of getting stuck. Now, Joe and Charlie suggest a late recovery. 30 years sober, maybe Bill was depressed, and I understand that stuck. I would be someone that could have helped him with that, because at that time his issues were no longer about alcohol. He hadn't drank in a very long time. So, but that's a story for another day. We all have life issues. That's the deal. You put the drink down and work out some stuff, and next thing, life goes on. Life is tough enough as it is without the drink and drug, right? I think we have a pretty good base for where to start here. So we're going to ease now into step 1. And for that material, I will be using the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book, parts of it. This isn't a big book study, and I'll also be using the 12 and 12. Now that came out in 53, 54. Each one has a version of the 12 steps, and so it can be a little confusing. Well, which one do I go to if I want to know the steps? And we're going to get into that. I'm going to put that together to best understand this what is truly a very simple message. For today, have a nice day, and thank you for listening.
If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Ring the bell to be notified when new content is added. Also, you can support the 12-Step Guide channel by donating through PayPal to hsworldservice@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening. Until next time, think, keep it simple, live and let live. Feelings aren't facts. Easy does it, but do it. One day at a time, but plan to live tomorrow.